Welcome to Stay Home, Stay Focused. I am Jack Moline. I'm the president of Interfaith Alliance, and my special guest today is Reverend Cari Jackson, who is the director of spiritual care and activism at the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. A lot of words, and we're going to unpack all of them. But before we do, Cari, how are you?
Actually, I'm doing very well.
Good, good. Everything is stable in your home and personal life, I presume.
No, um, I'm, I'm going to have an eye procedure tomorrow that I'm really looking forward to because I've been having lots of challenges with my vision. So this will be procedure number 3 out of 4. So we're on the upward slope with that. So that's been very destabilizing in my life. And in the midst of the pandemic, things that ordinarily I would do to help me stay centered and grounded, I have not been able to do those things. So I've had to learn some new things.
So what is
So
what
when I
have you
say I'm
learned?
very well, it's not because everything is fine and whatnot. But
Well, I'm glad that not only your eyesight will be improved, but I hope your vision will be improved with it as well. But what are
that
some of
that has
the
been my prayer.
there
That's
you
been
go.
my
What are some of these things that you found that have helped you stay focused in this difficult time?
one of the things, and it's been this the kind of gift that challenge and adversity brings is having to go deeper in discovering what helps me stay focused and grounded. I'm a writer. I love to write. And because of my vision challenges, I haven't been able to do that.
Hmm.
And so, thought about, well, record some things, which I have been doing for work projects, but the kind of writing I like to do is very tactile. And so I haven't been able to do that. So I've been dancing a lot
Good
when
for
my
you.
eyes have allowed that. And when I haven't been able to do that, I've been reflecting on the kinds of things that give me joy. And I know that the human brain cannot really distinguish past, present, and future. So I've been going into some wonderful past memories and bringing them into the present moment. And, recently I went skydiving. So I've been imagining myself doing that. Uh, and just those are the kinds of things that have been very important to me. And that's been fun. And also calling or texting people who have been important throughout my life and staying connected with them in those kinds of ways has been really important.
You know, I thank you for bringing up some of these things to people who are watching and listening because so often when we talk about staying focused, we think of it as an intellectual activity that you have to read or you have to think great thoughts or something like that. Uh, Enlightenment comes in lots of different ways, and movement is something that we haven't explored in all the episodes of this that we've done. So thank you for bringing that to us. You have one of the great titles for any job I've ever encountered. Uh, the director of spiritual care and activism, and you have another title that you've chosen for yourself, which is spiritual midwife.
Yes.
I'd love for you to unpack both of them. First, the RCRC title.
It is really a reflection of how I live and understand myself in the world. That to engage as an activist, for me, I cannot do that when I don't understand activism as part of spiritual care. And when I engage in spiritual care, only to comfort people where they are and not seek to improve their situation through activist efforts is feels incomplete to me. And so it's the two that dance, here's that word is again, the two dance together for me. And that integration is important in the work that we do with RCRC, and encouraging clergy and other people of faith to engage in spiritual care for individuals who are experiencing whatever reproductive issues they may be experiencing. To provide that care and compassion is really important. And then also the activism and the advocacy part of it. Again, not merely leaving people with comfort in the situations we may find them, but also helping to alleviate the pain, the suffering, the hardship and challenge they may experience, and that others experience as well. And so that's why those two concepts are in that one title, and I really love my job title.
That's terrific. And tell me about being a spiritual midwife too.
Midwifery for me is very much about facilitating someone else in their journey. You're not the one having the baby, but the kind of support that you provide is absolutely essential. And as a spiritual midwife, I understand myself to support people in their spiritual journey, and understanding their spiritual journey is theirs. It's not mine. And the birthing that's happening is really helping people come into a new understanding of themselves. And I hope that we have these rebirthing experiences in various ways in our lives. And, you know, there are some who talk about being born again, and very much an evangelistic notion in the frame that we often think it. But I believe that this COVID-19 moment, for example, offers us an opportunity for some rebirth, because we have to go in and reflect, and we have to get clearer about what our values and our priorities are and who's most meaningful in our lives. And we have to realign and re-understand what it means to have healthy boundaries, and on and on and on and on. And so it's my hope that people will come through this moment with an experience of being reborn. And I hope in some ways, as I encounter various people, to journey with them in their own spiritual birthing and rebirthing.
You certainly have great models in the book of Exodus, at the very beginning, where the two midwives in Pharaoh's court are the ones who stand for life in the midst of a decree of death. And
Yes.
here we are in the midst of the coronavirus. There's probably no better person to be than a midwife of any kind right now. So my apologies for the phone ringing.
No worries.
And it happens all the time. You came to your activism and your engagement with RCRC on a journey that started in Pentecostalism. Will you talk to us a little bit about that journey?
My parents were both in the Pentecostal church from their teen years, and I'm the fourth of four children. My brothers and I grew up steeped in Pentecostalism, and I'm grateful to be able to say that my parents really lived their faith. So they weren't one way when we were in church and another way in our home. And I'm really very, very grateful to that, to them for that. My Pentecostal experience, one of my most profound journeys, was a time I was 14 years old and I was in church and people were worshiping in the Pentecostal way. There was lots of singing and speaking in tongues and raising of hands and singing and all of those things. And I was standing there and I felt absolutely nothing. And so I thought it was because of sin in my life. There was something wrong with me. That's you know, as a good Pentecostal, that's where I was taught to focus. It must be because of something I did wrong. I left the church, physically left that sanctuary, stood outside in the August night by myself, looked in the sky, saw this beautiful starlit sky, and I began singing the song Amazing Grace.
Huh.
Tears started streaming down my face. I felt myself ushered into the very presence of God. And it was a profound moment for me because I realized then that God comes to us in so many different ways. And for some of us, it might be in the shout and the dance and all of those kinds of things. And for others of us, it might be a more quietistic moment. Now, over the years, I also embraced the shout and the dance. That's part of my Pentecostal experience. But because of that moment, it began opening me to the varieties of ways that we can experience God and can know God and can talk about God, relate with God, et cetera, et cetera. And one other profound thing that happened for me also around the time I was 14, I became friends with a family of wonderful people who were atheists. And I saw how much they cared for other people. They were living by what many of us know as the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. They lived by that rule, even though it was not guided for them by some theistic construct. And it captured me. And I said, oh, it is not only about how I'm serving in relation to God, it's also about how I'm serving in relation to others. And also around that time, I did a volunteer experience in a children's hospital. And that was such a profound experience for me. I did that because I said, I don't know what that's like to be a child and be sick. So let me be available to these children in the hospital. And of course, as is often the case when we volunteer, I believe that the ways that I was able to help them, while that was wonderful, I hope and pray, what I learned and the ways that I developed from that experience have continued to bless my life. And I learned some hard things about child abuse. I learned things about chronic illness that as a child I had not known before. And it deepened a compassion in me that continues to go forward in my life. As someone who wants to be available to a cross section of people. And so that age 13, 14 was really transformative for me in a whole lot of ways. And so I look back on that 50 years ago now.
I can hear, well, worship, relationship, and service.
Yes.
The three legs of a stool that will hold an awful lot of burdens in this world. That's you're blessed to have that kind of a story to tell. You come from an evangelical culture with which you were deeply familiar. And you know that even if this wasn't necessarily the case when you and I were much younger, today, sort of the political standard for being an evangelical is in opposition to abortion.
Yes.
And here you are working at the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. Is using the term spiritual midwife where you are something that seems ironic, or does it reclaim something essential in your faith life and in the life of people who believe in the Bible?
It is very reclaiming. Midwifery, as I said earlier, is really about journeying with someone and their own experience. It is not dictating to them what their experience need be, nor is it trying to own the product of their reproductive experience. And so as I do this work, it is a reclaiming in that, as you spoke about the midwives in Exodus, they were not only doing their work with that one individual, they were looking at the social context in which the individual found herself. And so the work of RCRC and my work with RCRC is very focused on looking at the intersectionality of people's lives. I do not have the right from my own life experience to say what is good and right and whole for someone else. I do get to have the opportunity to journey with them as they're making their own faithful, their own moral decisions, and also to journey with folks as they may have experienced loss of any sort in their lives. It is a reclaiming for me in this way as well. About 25-ish years ago, when I get up certain age numbers, you forget when.
I hear that.
25-ish years or so ago, I was deeply contemplating becoming pregnant. And at the time, I decided that as a gay woman in America and a Black gay woman in America, I was not emotionally ready to deal with the kind of social pushback I knew I would receive. And I decided that I could not move forward with becoming a parent, even though that was something I really wanted to do. I wanted to have the experience of pregnancy and childbirth and all of those things. I elected not to do that because I really did not have the muscle to deal with all of what I knew was going to come. That is a very profound reproductive loss for me. And so when I do my work with RCRC, it is about abortion, yes. It is about contraception, yes. It is about fertility challenges, yes. And reproductive losses in the variety of ways in which they come, including in this culture where we have so much gun violence. Reproductive freedom is also pointing to the mothers who have lost their children because of gun violence and our lack of compassion in this culture to really have the kind of gun legislation reform that we need that fully honors what motherhood and parenthood includes. So it's a whole, very holistic and comprehensive picture for me when I think about that midwifery role in the context of reproductive freedom.
And you've really opened up this concept of choice, which is part of the title of the organization as well.
Yes, yes.
That's very important. We're almost near the end of our conversation, and in full disclosure to those who are viewing and listening, we're actually recording this before the day that it's going to appear on Facebook Live. So you and I have not had the opportunity to view the documentary that is supposed to air this weekend on Netflix about Norma McCorvey, who was the famous Jane Roe in Roe v.
Yes.
Wade. One of the revelations, though, that's come out about this is that she was manipulated, it seems, by both sides
Yes.
In order to serve their purposes. I don't even know what to ask you about that, other than I have you here, and you are wise in these matters. What do you say about Jane Roe and her role in reproductive health care in America?
We are comprehensive and holistic beings. We are not, as we in our political circles want to make people, as either this or that. When we leave out the richness of who human beings are, it is always a disservice to the individual and to the cause of justice. Justice is not about this is the right way in this definitive stark black and white. Justice is about journeying with people in ways that support their wholeness. And it is the case, I believe, for Norma, that when she became the poster child, there was a complete disavowing of all of who she is as a human being. When people make difficult decisions, that doesn't mean there's not also some grieving that comes with it.
Sure.
Example, when people make the decision to terminate a marriage that they're in, and they make it for all of the reasons that are good and right and whole for their lives, doesn't mean they're not also going to grieve. That
Right.
doesn't mean they regret their decision, but it does mean they grieve, because there's this vision of what could have been. And that's part of how we live in the world. And so I believe that may have been the experience for Norma. And others then say, well, if you grieve, that means you regret, and they are not the same thing. And I hope that we can be able to look at one another in ways that are more holistic and more true to what it means to be human.
Reverend Cari Jackson, I have so much more to learn from you, but our viewers and listeners have a 20-minute time frame here. So you and I will talk more. But in the meantime, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. Wish you good luck on your in your eye procedures, so that your clarity of vision only improves. And to those of you viewing and listening, stay home and stay focused.
Blessings. Thank you so much, dear Rabbi Jack, for this moment.